In the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire stood as the most powerful force in the known world. Its armies had conquered vast territories stretching from Britain to the Middle East, and few rulers dared to challenge its authority. Yet in the rich desert city of Palmyra, an extraordinary woman was preparing to do exactly that. Her name was Queen Zenobia, and her courage, intelligence, and ambition would soon make her one of Rome's most formidable enemies. Zenobia's rise to power began after the assassination of her husband, King Odenathus, who had faithfully defended Rome's eastern frontier against the Persian Empire. With their son still too young to rule, Zenobia became regent, but she had no intention of serving merely as a caretaker. She quickly proved herself to be a capable leader, winning the loyalty of soldiers, nobles, and merchants alike. Gifted with a sharp political mind, she understood that Rome was weakened by internal conflict, economic troubles, and constant civil wars. It was the perfect moment to expand Palmyra's influence. Under her leadership, Palmyra transformed from a wealthy trading city into a powerful empire. Her armies marched across neighboring lands, bringing Syria, Egypt, and large parts of Asia Minor under her control. These victories secured vital trade routes connecting the Roman world with Persia, Arabia, and India, making her kingdom richer than ever before. Zenobia also presented herself as a cultured and sophisticated monarch, reportedly speaking several languages and surrounding herself with philosophers, scholars, and advisors. She even claimed descent from the famous Egyptian queen Cleopatra, strengthening her image as a rightful ruler of the East. As Zenobia's power continued to grow, so did Rome's concern. What had begun as a loyal allied kingdom was rapidly becoming an independent empire. The challenge could no longer be ignored. Far to the west, Emperor Aurelian watched these events unfold, knowing that sooner or later only one ruler could claim authority over the eastern provinces. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation that would decide the fate of Queen Zenobia, Palmyra, and Rome itself. By AD 272, Emperor Aurelian had restored order across much of the Roman Empire and was determined to reclaim every province that had slipped from imperial control. Zenobia's expanding kingdom was no longer viewed as a troublesome ally, but as a direct threat to Rome's authority. Confident in his battle-tested legions, Aurelian led a massive military campaign into the eastern provinces, determined to crush the Palmyrene Empire once and for all. The clash between the two rulers would become one of the most important conflicts of the 3rd century. As the Roman army advanced, city after city opened its gates or was taken by force. Zenobia refused to surrender without a fight. Her experienced generals gathered soldiers from across her empire, including cavalry, archers, and heavily armored troops. The first major confrontation came near Antioch, where the Palmyrene army fought bravely, but was ultimately outmaneuvered by Aurelian's disciplined forces. According to ancient accounts, the Romans cleverly used a feigned retreat, luring Zenobia's powerful cavalry into a reckless pursuit before turning to launch a devastating counterattack. The defeat forced her army to withdraw deeper into Syria. Another fierce battle followed near Emesa. Once again, Zenobia's warriors resisted with determination, but Rome's superior organization, experienced officers, and relentless infantry gradually broke their defenses. Casualties mounted on both sides, yet the Roman advance never stopped. Every defeat weakened Palmyra's ability to replace soldiers and gather supplies, while Aurelian's victories encouraged more cities to abandon Zenobia's cause. The balance of power was shifting rapidly. Recognizing that she could no longer defeat the Romans in open battle, Zenobia retreated to her magnificent capital of Palmyra. Surrounded by towering defensive walls and protected by the harsh Syrian desert, the city prepared for a final stand. Food and water were carefully rationed as Roman forces surrounded the oasis. With allies failing to arrive and hope fading, Zenobia realized that every passing day brought her closer to an impossible choice: fight until destruction or attempt a desperate escape that might save her kingdom. As the Roman siege tightened around Palmyra, Queen Zenobia understood that time was no longer on her side. The city's impressive walls had delayed the inevitable, but they could not withstand Rome forever. Supplies of food and water were steadily shrinking, morale among the defenders was fading, and no reinforcements appeared on the horizon. Despite her determination, Zenobia knew that remaining inside the city would almost certainly lead to capture. She decided to risk everything on one final gamble, a daring escape across the desert in search of help from the Persian Empire. Rome's greatest eastern rival. Under the cover of darkness, Zenobia quietly slipped out of Palmyra with a small group of trusted companions. Riding one of the swift dromedary camels for which the region was famous, she headed east toward the Euphrates River. The journey was dangerous, crossing miles of barren desert where scorching days and freezing nights tested even the strongest travelers. Every hour mattered. If she could reach Persian territory, she hoped to persuade the Persian king to send an army that might drive the Romans out of Syria and restore her throne. It was a desperate plan, but it represented her last chance to save both herself and her kingdom. Emperor Aurelian, however, had anticipated such a move. He knew that a ruler as determined as Zenobia would not surrender easily. Roman cavalry patrols were sent to watch every possible escape route, leading toward the Persian frontier. Before Zenobia could cross the Euphrates, Roman horsemen caught up with her near the riverbank. Surrounded and with no realistic chance of escape, the once powerful queen was taken prisoner. She was brought before Aurelian, no longer as a rival monarch but as a captive whose empire had collapsed. News of Zenobia's capture spread quickly back to Palmyra. Without their queen and with no hope of outside assistance, the city's leaders realized further resistance would only bring unnecessary destruction. They opened the gates to the Romans, bringing the brief but remarkable Palmyrene Empire to an end. Although Rome had won the war, the fate awaiting its famous captive remained uncertain. After Queen Zenobia's capture, many expected Emperor Aurelian to order her immediate execution. Throughout Roman history, rebellious rulers often paid for their defiance with their lives, serving as warnings to anyone who dared challenge the empire. Yet Aurelian understood that killing Zenobia on a distant battlefield would never have the same political impact as displaying Rome's victory before the entire capital. Instead of ending her life, he chose to transform her into the ultimate symbol of Roman supremacy. Escorted by heavily armed guards, Zenobia was taken on the long journey from the eastern provinces to Rome. Along the way, she passed through cities that had once recognized her authority, but were now firmly under Roman control. The queen who had ruled a vast empire was stripped of her royal power, though ancient writers describe her maintaining remarkable composure despite her circumstances. Even as a prisoner, she reportedly carried herself with the dignity of a monarch, refusing to let humiliation completely break her spirit. In AD 274, Aurelian celebrated one of the greatest triumphal parades in Roman history. Such triumphs were lavish public processions held to honor victorious generals returning from successful campaigns. The streets of Rome filled with cheering crowds eager to witness the empire's latest conquest. Soldiers marched in perfect formation, wagons overflowed with captured treasures, exotic animals amazed spectators, and banners proclaimed Rome's victories across distant lands. Among the most anticipated sights was Queen Zenobia herself. Ancient historians describe Zenobia walking in the procession adorned with magnificent jewels, but restrained by heavy golden chains. Some accounts even claim the chains were so massive that attendants helped support their weight as she moved through the crowded streets. Whether every detail is historically accurate remains uncertain, but the image became one of the most enduring symbols of Rome's dominance. The proud queen who had once challenged the world's greatest empire now stood before thousands as living proof that no rival, however bold or powerful, could ultimately escape Rome's reach. Her public humiliation became one of Aurelian's greatest political victories. Once the triumphal celebrations ended, many Romans assumed Queen Zenobia's fate was sealed. Throughout Roman history, defeated kings and queens were often executed after a triumph to demonstrate the empire's absolute authority. The crowds who had watched her march through the streets in golden chains may have expected to hear news of her death within days. Instead, Emperor Aurelian made a decision that surprised both his supporters and later historians. Rather than ordering her execution, he chose to spare her life, an act that has remained one of the most debated episodes of his reign. Ancient sources offer different explanations for this unexpected mercy. Some writers believed Aurelian admired Zenobia's courage, intelligence, and determination. She had challenged Rome not through reckless rebellion, but by building an organized and prosperous state capable of resisting one of history's greatest empires. Others argued that sparing such a famous captive enhanced Aurelian's own reputation. By showing mercy after complete victory, he could present himself not only as a conqueror, but also as a confident and generous emperor, whose power no longer needed to be proven through executions. According to the most widely accepted ancient tradition, Zenobia was granted a comfortable residence at Tibur, known today as Tivoli, a pleasant town outside Rome where wealthy nobles owned luxurious villas. There she is said to have lived under Roman supervision but with considerable privilege. Instead of wearing a prisoner's chains, she reportedly adopted the lifestyle of the Roman aristocracy. Her children are believed to have received Roman educations, and some later traditions even suggest that members of her family married into respected Roman households, gradually becoming part of the empire's elite society. Not every historian accepts every detail of this account, as the surviving sources sometimes contradict one another. Even so, most agree that Zenobia was not executed after her capture. Her remarkable survival distinguished her from many other defeated rulers of antiquity. Though she lost her throne, her army, and her empire, she retained the one thing countless conquered monarchs never received: the chance to live beyond defeat and witness history remember her name. Although queen, Zenobia disappeared from the political stage after her defeat. Her story did not end with her captivity. The fall of Palmyra marked the end of one of the most remarkable challenges ever faced by the Roman Empire during the turbulent 3rd century. Yet Rome's victory came at a cost, and the memory of Zenobia's bold resistance continued to inspire admiration long after her kingdom had vanished. Her brief reign proved that even the greatest empire in the world could be tested by determined leadership, careful planning, and extraordinary ambition. Palmyra itself, however, faced a far darker future. Only a short time after Aurelian's victory, the city rebelled once again against Roman rule. This second uprising was quickly crushed, and the emperor responded with overwhelming force. Ancient sources describe widespread destruction as Roman troops sacked the city, ending its status as one of the richest trading centers in the ancient world. Magnificent temples, grand public buildings, and bustling marketplaces that had once connected east and west were left damaged or abandoned. Palmyra never fully recovered its former power or influence. Zenobia's personal legacy, however, proved far more enduring than the empire she built. Roman historians, Byzantine chroniclers, Arab writers, and later European scholars all preserved her story, though often with different interpretations. Some portrayed her as an ambitious rebel who overreached her limits, while others celebrated her as a wise, educated, and courageous queen who dared to stand against impossible odds. Her reported intelligence, military leadership, and claim of descent from Cleopatra transformed her into a legendary figure whose reputation extended far beyond the ancient world. Today, historians continue to study Zenobia, because her life reflects both the strength and the fragility of power. She ruled an empire that rose with astonishing speed and fell just as quickly. Yet her name survived when countless other rulers were forgotten. Whether living her final years in comfort near Rome, or meeting another fate that history failed to record with certainty, Zenobia achieved something few defeated monarchs ever did. She became a symbol of resilience, courage, and ambition, ensuring that her struggle against Rome would be remembered for nearly 2,000 years.